Stevenson, Senior Family Court Judge from the Superior Court. Great, welcome. So I'd just like to say, everybody, good afternoon, and it's my pleasure as Treasurer of the Law Society of Ontario to welcome you to Family Justice System, Access to Justice and the Changing Landscape, a discussion developed for Ontario's 5th Annual Access to Justice Week. Je m'appelle Teresa Donnelly, la trésorière de Barreau. C'est un plaisir de vous souhaiter la bienvenue aujourd'hui. I'm joining today from my home in Huron County. I would like to acknowledge that Huron County is located on the traditional lands of the Ojibwe Chippewa of the Anishinaabe group of Indigenous peoples. Huron County is on the territory that is covered by Crown Treaty number 29, known as the Huron Tract Purchase of 1827. As you know, we have a call for comment on a proposed family legal service provider license, which closes on November 30th. That proposed license is only one aspect of the Law Society's Family Law Action Plan. Today, we are talking about other aspects of that action plan and exciting developments in the family law landscape and what has changed in terms of the delivery of free and affordable family law services, especially over the past 6 months, but also over the past 3 to 5 years. So much good work is happening on the ground to change how family law clients can get help, both publicly and privately, along a spectrum from public legal education and initial consultations on one end, all the way up to full representation. I wish to recognize the Family Law Bar for having taken on these projects in direct response to challenges that have been identified in terms of access to affordable legal representation. And now I have the honor of introducing today's co-chairs, Francis or Frankie Wood and Tammy Moscow. Frankie is a partner at Wood Gold LLP and practices family law, civil litigation, and does appeal work. She has a wealth of experience in representing clients. She's been actively involved in the legal community for years and is the chair of the family law section of the Ontario Bar Association. She also sits as the deputy judge of the Small Claims Court and is a dispute resolution officer in Peel Region. Welcome, Frankie. And now I'd like to introduce Tammy. She is Senior Family Counsel with the Office of the Chief Justice, Superior Court of Justice. And in that role, she provides very important advice to the Chief Justice and to Senior Family Justice Stevenson. Tammy's work includes developing internal and external resources for the Superior Court, and she assists with developing new processes, including a guide to process for family litigants. She's assisted with the development and implementation of best practices for family law and child protection proceedings. She also advises on improvements to the family law rules and also family justice innovations. Over the past 5 years, Tammy has contributed to several successful family law initiatives. She was instrumental in the recent Unified Family Court expansion in Ontario, as well as the recent launch of Ontario's Family Law Limited Scope Services Project. So with that introduction, it's over to Tammy and Frankie, and thank you so much for all your work in this area and for leading us today.
Thank you, Treasurer. We're so excited to see so many faces, many familiar, some not, coming out to hear today's presentation. Our introductory remarks will be brief. So much has happened in the last 6 months to 5 years since this issue has been under the microscope. COVID has been so challenging in so many ways, and also has brought out lots of progress and innovation. So today we're going to be very quickly profiling a whole host of those innovations in family law service delivery, and talking about some next steps and where we go from here. Frankie?
Thank you. When I was looking at the agenda for today, I have to say I was just so impressed with the range of things that are happening across this province, some of which I knew about, but tons that I didn't know about. And we even found out about more initiatives that we just couldn't add into the agenda just because of time constraints. And we've told everyone to sort of keep their remarks quite short and to the point, because we really wanted to fit in as many different speakers on different subjects as we possibly could. But I have to say, it was really, really exciting to see so many different initiatives going on. And I really hope that today we're going to be able to hear from everyone, but then also have some really great discussion at the end, some takeaways, particularly on how we can get the word out about so many of these great programs out to the members of the public who need and can benefit from these programs. So I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to kind of very, very briefly introduce each of our speakers, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves, because if we do the typical bio for everyone, then that's going to take up all of our time, and we're going to be here all day. And I know you want to hear the real meat and potatoes of things, and so we're just going to kind of launch right into it. And so Tammy, I'm going to let you take it away from here.
I actually seem to have someone knocking at my front door. So maybe Lorna can jump in as our first speaker, and I will be back in 1 second.
No problem. Lorna, we'll take it.
Lorna Gates loves to jump in, so no problem. I am a family lawyer in Toronto and on the Bench and Bar Committee at 361 University. But what I really am is a parent surviving 6-year-old twins. So that's what I in the middle of a pandemic, give myself full credit for. It's not really the other work that I do. I wanted to let you know about an amazing program that we started in cooperation with the 361 Bench and Bar Committee, the Judiciary and Court Services. It's called Advice and Settlement Council Toronto, ASC. Tammy's trying to convince me to get rid of the Toronto part because she has a sense we might go province-wide, but I'm not there yet. So here's what happened. Legal Aid no longer provided advice or duty counsel to the Superior Court location in Toronto. So we were without any ability to have self-represented litigants get any advice or services in court. So as a private bar, we decided to step up, and we have a roster of about 50 lawyers in Toronto who are trained, and they provide summary legal advice to self-represented litigants. The really neat thing about our project is we've had a ton of support from the Family Law Limited Scope Services Project, and that's the unbundled services project, which has been amazing. And they are funded by the Law Foundation of Ontario. So we've had great mentoring and support, and the program kind of comes as an inspiration from a program that began in Barrie, Ontario, in the Unified Family Court. You do not need to be in court to access our services. You can be in court, but you don't need to be. We will attend motions for you. We'll attend conferences. We'll negotiate consents. We'll give summary advice about upcoming court appearances or potential settlements. We'll help with drafting settlement terms and offers. We'll help you with understanding court protocols, practice directions, and give you advice about any family law matter that you're dealing with, FRO issues as well. And the really neat thing about what our lawyers do is we give you a to-do list at the end. So at the end of your time with us, you can have an hour with us, or you can have more if we have availability. And the rate is $200 an hour plus HST, which is the same rate as the Barrie project uses. Our lawyers will give you a to-do list and action items so that you have a take with you. You'll have the name of the judge that you appeared before if you're in court, which most people forget, including lawyers, what the next step is, and what you need to do to be prepared for the next step. So we were operating out of the courthouse location in the Flick earlier this year. The pandemic struck, and now we've moved to a virtual experience. We are now 5 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and we're operating virtually. The website is www.afcfamily.com. And the really interesting thing about that is that we're really available at the convenience of the people that want to use our services. And you don't need to be in Toronto now because we're virtual. It means that you can go to the website, hover your mouse over the calendar, see the lawyers, the 2 lawyers that are on shift, each shift. And so the shifts run from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And when you hover your mouse over the calendar and the lawyer's name, you'll have their email and their phone number, and you can go ahead and contact them directly. All of the forms that you would need to fill out if you're self-represented are on our website, including the retainer agreement, the various consents to research, because we're doing some research in cooperation with Dr. Rachel Birnbaum from Western, payment information, etc. They're all Adobe fillable, very user-friendly, and the lawyer can help you as soon as they run a conflict check. So it's really meant to be not scary, very user-friendly and accessible. We're really excited that the program's 5 days a week. And I think the challenge now that we've talked about is we need support in getting the word out to the public. So normally, if you were in court, or possibly worried about going to court, you would walk into the FLIC office in your local courthouse and you would get information about us and other services like mediation. These days, people are properly not coming to the courthouse, and that's a good thing in many ways, but in other ways, it's presented a challenge because they're not getting the information. So it's harder for them to find our services and other court-connected services. So we would love some support from the Law Society and the Attorney General to make sure, I'm sure like a lot of you who are running these programs, that the public knows about these programs and they're able to access our services. As Frankie and Tammy said, there's amazing services for the public all around this province, and the challenge is ensuring that the public knows the services exist and can use them. And that's what we're really excited about in terms of sharing this information today with you and brainstorming with you as part of this session. So that's my pitch about 393 or ASC Toronto, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end.
Lauren, I just want to clarify, when you say $200 an hour, when the client calls, are they giving a blank check? What is their commitment? Can they get 1 hour of service? Can they get 5 hours of service?
They're committing to 1 hour of service, and then they can negotiate after the 1 hour with the panel lawyers. They could do maybe another half an hour or an hour. They can pay by e-transfer or by credit card. These days, that's the only 2 ways to pay, but it's an hour minimum at the $200 plus HST. And then actually, unlike some other programs, the client can decide to move forward with our ASC lawyers privately as well. So on the day of, they're welcome to use more than 1 hour of time if they would like to do that. But if they would like to think about using this lawyer in an unbundled way or even a full retainer, they're also welcome to do that. And that would be at the lawyer's regular hourly rate or whatever they negotiate.
Speaking of unbundled, thank you, Lorna. Next, we're going to hear directly from Tammy about unbundled services, which is one of my most favorite new ways of providing services.
Thank you. So just bear with me. I have a little bit of a cough. The Family Law Limited Scope Services Project launched 2 years ago. It was a go big or go home kind of thing. We got funding from the Law Foundation of Ontario. We now have over 200 family lawyers in over 50 communities across Ontario, speaking, I think it's a minimum of 25 languages, but it might be higher. So we now have an easy way for litigants to find lawyers who will provide the specific unbundled family law services that they want. So not only are lawyers doing it, and they're doing it openly and in a far bigger way than they were 3 years ago, but also we tried to address the access piece that Lorna was referring to briefly. So I'm sorry, if you were looking for a family lawyer to draft pleadings and you're in Barrie or in the Central East region, you can, pull up the lawyers that do it, and there's, you don't just have to Google unbundled and get a list of 3 family lawyers who may or may not do the specific service that you want in the location where you are. So the project is in its 3rd year of operations, and it has a ton of information on the website, and I'll put it up there as soon as I start talking because I can't multitask like that. I stop talking. But we're really excited because it really has, like 200 lawyers is a lot. It's not a fixed rate like Lorna's project, the ASC. Lawyers there can post information about whether they do flat fee services or modest fee services, but because it's unbundled, it's much more affordable for the client, and the client maintains control over what they are engaging the lawyer to do. So we've really moved the bar, literally and figuratively, in this area. And if you're interested, there's a ton of information and a number of resources there. And we're not proprietary. There's a retainer agreement for lawyers who want to do the work that was developed in consultation with Law Pro. There is a really neat client issue checklist that we developed borrowing from a main project. There's information for clients about unbundled and limited scope retainers, and also links to places where clients can get more help, like Steps to Justice. And I know they'll be speaking shortly. So, sorry, we're very excited that the project has come as far as it has. We're still working to get the word out, so similar challenges. The FLIC was such a natural place, the Family Law Information Centers, for clients to come and find this information. Litigants are struggling with that. We know that because Zoom Court doesn't really facilitate that contact for legal services or other services, whether it's mediation or community referrals. So everyone's kind of trying their best to function in this virtual world. That's one of the big things. The other thing is that we still haven't, as a community or as a justice community system, been able to change the understanding that legal fees can be hired and retained in different ways. And so our sticker shock problem remains outstanding, because I think the public has been scared off to some extent going to see lawyers, and they're worried that they're going to have to give a retainer of $10,000 and they don't know where it's going to get them. So lawyers we have 200 family lawyers who have changed the way they're willing to engage in that discussion, and I think that we need to bring the clients along. So changing the messaging as well as direct referrals, so that people understand that they can choose to spend $500 before a court event to get some advice about what to expect and what's an appropriate range of resolution or how to conduct themselves. And I think that that's been a pretty clear theme from some of the research, is that litigants want more control about if and how they retain services. And I say litigants, but the project does not, you don't have to be in court. It can be to support negotiations or mediations and the whole kind of spectrum of family dispute resolution. So in terms of takeaways, I would suggest that we need help from the ministry and from the Law Society and likely others to help people understand that there's different ways that they can hire a family lawyer and get family law help. Then the referrals and the direct access, I think, will flow a little more smoothly.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tammy. I'll introduce the next, because we were going to do this in alternating, but who knows exactly how that's going to work out. But we're going to hear from Julia Vera next from the Family Law Association of Ontario with respect to some other really interesting library-based services.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Julia Vera, and I'm the chair of the Family Lawyers Association. I'm a family law lawyer and a child protection lawyer. So here at the FLA, we've been providing free in-person family law sessions for about 3 years now through the Toronto Public Libraries. And the sessions are available to everyone and anyone. There are no restrictions or limitations based on income, and you don't actually have to be involved in court. So you can be at any point in the process or just seeking information to attend the sessions. So before COVID times, our members would be paired up and provided with the presentation materials that the association had produced. We felt that providing presenters with our material ensured that the sessions retained consistency throughout all the sessions, and it also made it quite appealing for lawyers who are always sort of pressed for time. The materials were presented in PowerPoint And we felt that that made it quite easy for participants to sort of follow along with the visuals. The sessions would normally run about an hour or so, and an extra half an hour for the participants to bring forward any questions they may have for our members. So the library would provide us with the facilities required to run the sessions, and our members would be just, bring along their laptop and sort of hook it up, and the library would sort of provide the rest. The sessions didn't require any like pre-registration, so it could be a sort of walk-in. Some libraries did opt for setting up Eventbrite registries before the session, but it wasn't mandatory. And so we made sure that they were heavily advertised in our courthouses, through the libraries. They provide 4 times a year a newsletter. They also provided advertisement through their website. And we did our own sort of, getting the word out as well. And also normally if there was a legal clinic that was sort of, close to the host library, we would also ask that legal clinic do us the favor of sort of letting people know that session would be available to their local library. That was pre-COVID. Now, obviously that's not a possibility anymore. So this year we plan on doing them through Zoom. But we definitely want to go back to the old format once obviously it's safe to do so. But for now, we're going to have to sort of stick to this method that we're using currently right now. So
Julia, I'm not sure if you covered this. These are free cost?
Yes, they're free. Yeah, free and yeah. And like I said, income is not relevant. So whatever your income is, you can attend free, and you don't have to pre-register most of the time. So that's what we've been doing at the FLA. It's also my understanding that the Family Mediation and Resource Center is doing something very similar. And they're providing their information sessions through the Pickering Public Libraries. And their sessions also cover, I think, the majority of the same kind of areas, dealing with separation and divorce, child support, spousal support. So they're doing that because ours has stayed local or relatively local just to Toronto. But one thing, once our participants provide attendees with this information, it's not actual legal advice, it's just legal information. We find that, that there remains a gap there. And that's why it's so helpful to have so many of these types of services available, because where one ends, another one can sort of pick up from there. So we're sort of providing an intro to the where to go, what to do. And then from there, these other services are available to actually provide legal advice for these participants.
Julia, how many lawyers do you have around, just ballparking, participating, and how do people find out more information about the sessions?
Well, what we do normally every year, we do a call out to our members, and depending on how many want to participate that year, we pair them up and we spread them along the Toronto Public Library. So it changes from year to year. And I anticipate this year, because everything will go online, that it should be easier for people to accommodate, an hour and a half, 2 hours of their time to provide these sessions. And they could, more information is provided through our website, which I can, I think, add here to the general chat.
That'd be great. Thank you. I think what we'll do is we'll leave questions for the end, but maybe Dana, you can go next to discuss the upcoming Virtual Family Justice Center.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm excited to be here today. to talk about Pro Bono Students Canada's new Family Justice Centre, or the FJC. It's a brand new program, so some of you may not have even heard about it yet, but I'll tell you all about it. We're fortunate to have Epstein Cole as our founding partner, and Legal Aid Ontario is sponsoring us to hire students for this year. So we've just hired 8 wonderful part-time law students from across Ontario to support, actually administer the program. So in terms of a bit of context, some of you might be familiar with PBSC's former service delivery model, the Family Law Project, or the FLP. So the FJC, which I'm here to talk about, is going to replace the FLP. So the FLP you might have seen in family law courthouses. Oh, I'm saying my internet is unstable. Hopefully we're okay. So it was in courthouses across Ontario and well, GTA. It looked a little different at every chapter, but typically in courthouses where students were drafting court forms for self-represented litigants under the supervision of legal aid staff lawyers. Because of the LAO cuts, we had to wind down the program in March of 2020. And so with that, there was discussions on what we do next. How do we maintain such an impactful type of service delivery? And then happened around the same time. There was initially discussions about physical space, but then we shifted obviously to virtual. So this year we will be delivering services entirely virtually. So the FJC consists of 2 main components. One is public legal education material. We're working on those, and our first ones will be sort of focused on motions to change and what people need to sort of think through before they bring a motion to change, whether that's even necessary, and then how to bring a motion to change. But the part I want to talk to you more about today is the client-facing work that we're doing at the virtual legal clinics. And they are launching in January 2021. So in a few months, we're going to be launching these. It's free service for people who financially qualify, and our financial criteria are above legal aid cutoffs. We're able to help people who may not qualify for legal aid, but who can't afford a lawyer. The services will be available to all Ontarians, so people across Ontario, which is really exciting for us to be able to broaden the scope of service delivery, or not the scope of service delivery, but the geographic area that we're able to cover. So in doing this, we're going to be able to help people who have historically been unable to access our services. And, you know, we're cognizant of the fact that, you know, there are barriers to tech, but we're working with community partners and organizations, and we're trying to connect people to the tech in order to allow them to access. And we're also going to be speaking to people by phone if they don't have the ability to connect through Zoom. So in terms of how the clinics will run, I will share once I'm finished, because I don't know if I can do 2 at once, a flow chart that sort of sets out the client's journey. It's on our website. So basically when a client approaches us, not physically, all this is virtually, but a client will connect with us, the law students will administer the clinics. They're going to do the intake, they're going to schedule the clients for their appointments with the lawyer. And then that's assuming that they qualify and it's an issue that we're able to help with, which I'll get into in a second. So at that point, the lawyer would meet with the client and the student would attend also. And the lawyer would give summary legal advice to the client in that meeting. If the lawyer feels like it would be helpful for that client, or appropriate in that case for court forms to be prepared for that client, the lawyer will assign that to the law students in the meeting. And then in the days and the weeks following the clinic, the court form will be drafted by the student under the supervision of the supervising lawyer. And I think I forgot to say at the outset that our supervising lawyers are pro bono private bar lawyers. So at the end, I'll let you know when we're outreaching for people to become involved, but that's a key distinction between the FLP and the FJC. So let me just see. When the clients engage, when they, I guess, hire us for these limited scope services, they will sign a limited scope retainer agreement, or we haven't come up with the exact name, but they'll be signing something to specify what we will and won't be doing. In terms of the issues that we're able to help clients with, it's quite broad. So parenting, child support, spousal support, restraining orders, and issues with service. We draft a variety of documents for clients, pleadings, motions to change, which I think we'll be doing a lot of, motions, conference briefs, so standard documents. What we won't be helping with this year, anything that is, well, we can give summary advice on urgent issues. We won't be able to provide document drafting assistance with urgent issues because of the student supervision model, and we wouldn't be able to accommodate quick turnaround times. We won't be helping with refraining motions this year, child protection, property and divorce. So if you're familiar with the FLP, it's quite similar. So that's sort of in a nutshell the clinic model, and we're going to be offering them, like I said, starting in January, several times a month. And more information will be available on our website once we're getting closer to January, and we'll try and circulate that information perhaps with the people who have signed on today. And we are going to be recruiting volunteer lawyer supervisors early in the new year. Please reach out to me if you're interested. I can put you on the list ahead of that time. That would be really wonderful. It provides a really tangible way for the private bar to address the access to justice issues that we're all keenly aware of. It's a lot of fun to work with law students. They're very eager and they want to help and they want to do a good job. And also mentoring law students qualifies for CPD hours, with respect to specific client issues, but more broad discussions about professionalism, substantive and procedural issues. So that's a perk too. So yeah, if you're interested, please reach out.
Dana, I wonder if you could just let us know a little bit about the financial eligibility for the program.
Yes, so we're developing that right now, but it will be over legal aid, their cutoff, so that we're able to offer services to people who don't qualify financially, and that's what the FLP has done also. So we similar to the FLPs, we might need to look at making a few changes, but yeah, I don't have the specifics today, but I can get them to you.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And you've got a spreadsheet. Maybe if you want, you can just put it in the chat, or we can find a way to share it with the people as well, so that we can, everyone has better.
I think Chloe might have shared it in the chat, so it might be.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Next, we're going to go to Lisa Bernstein from Legal Aid, who's going to tell us about some of the work being done over there.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I'm Lisa, and I was practicing family lawyer for many years. I practiced in the private sector and joined Legal Aid in the family law office in 2003. So I've had various different jobs at Legal Aid over the years. I'm currently in general counsel's office. I think today I'm just going to focus on a few, like there've been quite a few initiatives during COVID. So in order to continue to provide access to justice during the pandemic, LEO, with the reduction in in-person appearances in the courts, we had to change the way we deliver services. So right off the bat, right in March and mid-March, we had to, since our duty counsel services are obviously provided, in court normally, and we had advice lawyers, their duty counsel stationed in the family law information centers across the province. We, all of those lawyers were, working from home come March. So what we started to do was provide summary legal advice and family to anyone that contacted the LAO's call centers. So the way you would access the summary legal advice and family was contacting LAO's 1-800 number. You would go through the typical steps of going through the call center, client service center worker. And if they determined that you needed further advice, they would put you on a work list and connect you with a lawyer that would contact back within a few days and provide you with legal advice. The one thing that has made things a little bit more accessible is that LAO took away the financial eligibility test and provided the summary legal advice to anyone that contacted LAO. So, that was obviously an expansion of service because in the initial stages of COVID, the calls were obviously down. People weren't coming out and asking for family law advice at the outset. So the demand wasn't outrageous. Obviously, as the things have continued, demand has increased, and perhaps there will be a change in the eligibility testing. But right now, summary legal advice and family remains the same. It's open to all. I think one interesting thing is that we've always provided some summary legal advice through the call center and family. Pre-COVID, I think there were just some statistics. I think they would have 100, let's say, calls per week. It's gone up as high as 1,200. I mean, the demand is high. It's there. So, it's hard to find resources to continue that. One of the next initiatives that arose, and I think the start date for that was September 21st, LAO provided their summary legal advice, and through the summary legal advice program, they would determine whether the client could utilize the services of a virtual document preparation service. So that was rolled out in September. The gateway to that is through the advice call. The way that they rolled this program out was you call, you get your advice. It's determined either through a legal aid worker, that's a non-lawyer at legal aid, or the lawyer, whether they think that you will be eligible for this service. This is financially, we have to use the legal aid's financial eligibility test for DC for this service, because I don't think they could manage to help every single client that needed it without financial eligibility testing. So they use the DC FET to provide the document preparation service. The service is for motions to change in custody, access, and child support, not for spousal support. And so if you qualify, you're told that someone will be calling you back within 5 days, I believe, and to expect a call. The call will come from an unknown number, and whoever calls back, the legal aid worker or the lawyer, will try more than once. So we're definitely making that effort, because there's an understanding it's not easy, during the pandemic to reach clients. So there's a great effort made to ensure that they're reaching out to the clients. And in that time, they're also asked to gather certain materials so that the meetings can be fruitful and the client can start to get things ready for the document preparation service. This virtual document preparation service is really what our family law service centers have generally provided in the past, but they were in-person meetings. So this is sort of transitioned to an online service or virtual service. The next initiative that is rolling out, it has not started yet, it is soft launching. Hopefully, it was hopeful this week. It's coming soon. It is, and I think it's most exciting, is that in the Toronto Ontario Court of Justice for 47 Shepherd cases and for 311 Jarvis cases, what we're trying to provide is day of court duty counsel services for clients that are on a list coming up in court. So basically, the plan is to have a number that the courts will have that they can give out to clients. And the client, if their court matter is 2 to 5 days from upcoming, they will contact this number, and they will leave a message on this number, and someone will call back, and they will be triaged to determine what the case is about, and whether they can be helped by a duty counsel for their day of court. And they have to be financially and legally eligible for the court service. So it's anticipated that they'll be used for most part for case conferences. I think that this has not started yet, but what they're anticipating is that in order to have fruitful and meaningful court attendances, what we really need are to have documents. We need to have the court documents from the client. So we have been working with the courts, with Court Services Division, to figure out a way to have some document sharing in advance so that we can have meaningful court attendances. I think it's in everyone's interest to do that, to have that. If clients have their documents, they can scan and send them to us. But we're working very hard to figure out a way to receive materials in advance of court so that we can really help on the day of. So that's pretty much what we've been working on over the past few months at Legal Aid. And I'll answer any questions at the end.
We'll do questions at the end. Lisa, obviously what you've seen is kind of a palpable need for summary legal advice and free access to summary legal advice. Maybe that's a takeaway that we can put a little, bookmark on. I also think that the limited access on site to duty counsel is probably driving some of that. And certainly your efforts to help with that coordination are very well received. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, I work with the Superior Court, and it does seem to be that the OCJ gets into you before we do at any opportunity. But I also note that with the opening up of virtual services, that is an opportunity for our clients to request services where they would not otherwise have been available, provided obviously that they meet whatever financial eligibility thresholds are in place. So there's some exciting opportunities there, I think, for some expanded service.
It's funny that you should say that, because we did have a discussion about just that yesterday. And even though we don't normally staff someone in the Superior Court, if there are resources to assist, a financially eligible person in need of service, if there are resources, that's a possibility, Tammy, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it gets rid of the practical, the cost impediment of being present in the SBA.
Yeah.
But it would be really good if LAO could keep resources to have that initial contact and the initial summary legal advice, even just by telephone. And of course, there's lots of things that we all need to do, maybe to be coordinating that access better, like the project that you're talking about for Toronto OCJ. But those are some really great innovations in terms of making the system work in this environment. Okay, so I'm being told to move along. Next, we have Jane Robertson, who's going to talk about some of the innovations in private practice to help deal with affordability and access issues.
Thank you, Tammy. So my name is Jane Robertson. I practice in Owen Sound primarily, which is Grey County, Georgian Bay. I am the treasurer for the Federation of Ontario Law Associations. I'm also a family law practitioner, a long time now. I do a lot of agency work for the Office of the Children's Lawyer, collaboratively trained, bunch of other stuff, not really relevant because it's not been directly in the family law piece. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that section of the people who need our services that I have for years now referred to as the working poor. And those are the people who don't qualify for legal aid because they have jobs, but their jobs are so just over the margin, or our fees are so over the top that they're really hard pressed to be able to make best use of a fully retained lawyer. So there's a whole bunch of some of it's not even innovation. Some of it is just stuff that we've developed over the years. And thinking about how to do this presentation, I thought I sort of broke it up into two pieces. One is what the client can do, and the other one is what the lawyers can do. And the more I worked on it, the bigger the package for what the lawyers could do became. And the one for the clients is kind of small because they're really starting from a small place to begin with. They don't have a lot of resources. But so I'll deal with the little one first. And that is the most obvious one, I think, which is payment plans for the retainer. I call it slow drip retainer. Where I live, we sometimes have water problems, and the solution to that is to put a timer on the well. And so the well the pump cuts in for about 5 minutes every hour around the clock, and you've got this huge storage tank. And that's literally how you end up being able to have a shower, because if you had a 15-minute shower, the well would run dry and things get awful. So that payment plan, instead of having And I was kind of astonished that people would even ask for a $10,000 retainer. In my neck of the woods, it tends to be more along the lines of $2,500, but even that is difficult for a lot of clients. So very often what we do is we'll put a payment plan in place, and it specifically will say, you know, whatever number, and I always have the discussion with the client about how much they think they can afford. But the obligation on their part is that they're going to be making that contribution every month or biweekly, whatever works for them. And so that we both know that they've got a commitment to making sure that the retainer is in place, and that we can begin to move forward. The other thing is standard construct, and that is insisting, from the client's point of view, insisting on electronic construction of their story. I very often say to people, look, you know, it's all well and good that you can do a journal for me, but if you hand it to me in handwritten form, somebody's got to transcribe it, and then, you know, we try to turn it into court documents from there on. So I'm pretty insistent with clients that if they have any electronic capabilities whatsoever, that they send me their journals in electronic format, because it's far easier to work with that way. The other thing I like about that is very often there'll be little tidbits in there, and you can get their voice into the document. And I happen to think that's really important. Makes them feel like it's, you know, it's their story and it's their telling. Obviously, make sure you tell the clients to manage the number of phone calls that they're making. This goes for straight up with legal aid clients. It's one of the standard things that I tell them. You know, you will burn through your certificate unless you manage the number of contact points that you want to have with my office. The other thing I'm fairly strict with clients is, and my staff, is to make sure that everyone understands what the time frames are. So after every court appearance, after every interaction with the client, I try to make sure that we follow up with an actual time frame that I need the client to respond by, and I build into that how much time I then need to work with the material that they're going to give me. The other thing that I use, and it's a fairly recent development, and I've been sitting at court working with these, and found a lot of the other lawyers in our jurisdiction have kind of come over to look and see what I've got in my hand. And it was just a random idea that I came up with. But I had one of the local printers develop this little critter for me. It's a 2-part carbonless, and it's just a basic memo form. It's standard sheet page. I have a lot of them, and for certain, when I first meet with the clients, that's their to-do list. They go away with a great big list, and it comes from my duty counsel experience of giving the clients the to-do list to know what to expect to do next. They always get that at the very first interview.
Jane, do you mind if I just, because I'm loving all of the ideas that you've like the to-do list that you've talked about, and all these like fabulous ideas. I was curious. I wanted to ask you before we run out of time, because we've got to keep moving it along, about do you participate with any EAP programs with employers? I know that we do that, and I know some people do that, but I'd love to hear a little bit about that if you've got a moment.
Yep. So we do have not a lot of EAP up here, because we don't have a lot of big employers who have that kind of a plan. But we're very close to the lovely Bruce Nuclear Station, and so there's EAP programs coming from that particular organization. What that will get is basically a reduced fee, and they will very often also be a very limited retainer. So my experience is that they're just enough to get the client as much initial advice as they could possibly want, probably also get them started on their court file, but they don't fund the entire round of litigation. They tend to be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, and then the package itself is expended. And because, as I said, we really don't have all that many EAPs up here, we tend to have a more sort of homegrown, just little systems within our offices, and that we share, the information we share across the associations to try to make sure that everybody's got at least a couple of tools in their toolbox that they can use to help clients manage what otherwise would seem like a financially unmanageable package.
I think it's so interesting to hear about that. I know that there are a number, we work with some providers as well, where we agree in exchange for sort of the referral to provide like a blanket 25% discount on our rate right across the board. So I think that there are, I love hearing from you about some of these things that just on the ground, informally, unbranded, that just individual lawyers are doing in order to try and just make this more affordable for their clients. Was there, I want to keep moving it along, but I didn't want to interrupt you if you had anything else you wanted to add.
I just wanted to make one point, and that is check out the Law Pro website because they've got precedent retainers in there. They have a precedent retainer for family law. It is extensive. It provides a ton of information to the clients, all the sorts of stuff that we would be telling. And it also gives, there's quite a few flavors that you can choose from in there as to how you could set up various forms of the actual retainer agreement itself, up to and including, you know, whether you could register a mortgage on the client's property, and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, thank you.
There.
Thank you so much for that. I wish we had more time to hear about so many more of these great initiatives, but I do want to move on to Farah, who's going to talk to us about Steps to Justice.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. I actually have a short PowerPoint, so I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this works. And I will try to talk super quick because I am from CLEO and we are working on a ton of initiatives to kind of provide legal information for people. So just a very quick overview about CLEO. We are one of 73 community legal clinics across Ontario. We've been around for over 40 years. We get funding from Legal Aid, the Law Foundation, the Department of Justice. And our primary mandate is to produce and disseminate free legal information. The second part of our mandate is to provide community workers who provide who act as frontline workers to a lot of people who have these legal problems. And traditionally, we've produced a lot of print products, but we have gradually been moving to print. Moving online. And why we've done this is because we've noticed that more and more people are going online for information. I think, as we all know, there's a ton of information out there, but it's hard to kind of assess what's reliable and what's relevant. People are looking for more concrete next steps information that's responsive to their needs. So they no longer want like general information about what is child support, what is spousal support. They want to know how they can get it, how much they can get, things like that. And also now there's so many new interactive technologies that are out there with things like online e-filing and form completion that we've kind of decided to get on with providing online information. So the way we do that is through our website called Steps to Justice. It was launched in January 2017 with many partners, including the Law Society, LAO MAG, the courts, and our community, fellow community legal clinics. And then in November 2018, we launched the French sister site called Justice Pas à Pas. So to date, we've got about 650 questions in English and 650 in French. And on top of that, we've got an additional 130 questions dealing with COVID. So 130 in English, 130 in French. And to give a sense that of the number of visits we get, last year we had 4.5 million visitors and 8.5 million page views. So we are getting a ton of traffic to our site. We have content on over 16 legal topics broken into subtopics. So here you can see our family law page. We've got a bunch of subtopics, including information on out-of-court options, where we talk about the different ADR alternatives that are out there, as well as the getting legal help, going to family court. So we talk about the family court process from starting a family case all the way down to getting a court order and even changing a court order. And this is what our content looks like to give you a sense of how our content's organized. We've got an answer, and each answer has 3 to 5 next steps, which the person can take. Although we recognize that everyone has different digital skills and also comfort level and literacy. So maybe they can take 1 step, maybe they can take 2, or maybe they can get help with with another step. But the idea is to give them an understanding of the process and prepare them. We include links to forms, guides, checklists. We also include links to services. So this is where people can go to find, to get in-person help. So we do include services like the Family Law Limited Scope Project. We've also included the Settlement Council, sorry, let me get that right, the Advice Settlement Council project as well. And so this is really a great way for us to learn about the other initiatives that are out there, because we do try to link to a lot of services that are free and also services that are more low bono type. We've also started to develop tools and resources to supplement our content. So we've got, for example, a Steps in a Family Law Case, which takes you through the entire family law process. When you click on each box, you get more information. We have an initial before you start that talks about things like identifying your legal issue and getting help before starting a court case. We've just recently finished family court illustrations. So they are drawings of a typical family law courtroom at the Superior Court of Justice on Ontario Court of Justice. And when you click on each image, you get more information about what the person does. Again, it's just to give people an idea of what to expect when they go to court for a motion or a conference or a trial. Another online initiative we have is called Guided Pathways. So this is an online tool that can help people fill out their family court forms. It's been developed in collaboration with MAG. So here you can see all the different pathways that we have. And these are, the way it works is that it's developed through software called A2J guided interviews. You're asked a series of questions and your answers are taken and then populated into the form. So the end result is a form that can be edited, or you can file it online, or you can print it and file it in court when you're able to do so again. So in terms of how many people have been using this, on average, we were seeing about 1,300 sessions a month, but with COVID, the numbers went down, but they seem to be going back up. And in August and September, we've got about 1,000 sessions per month, with the most popular pathways being the simple and joint divorce. So this is just some upcoming pathways that we're working on, something on trial management conference, Divorce Act changes, and motions to change. And these are all coming soon. And then the last thing I just want to talk about very briefly is live chat, which is a function we have on our Steps to Justice website. It's not a portal for legal advice. It's just a service to help people find information and to make referrals to some of these services that we've been talking about. We offer live chat weekdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and then again 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. except on Thursdays, where we have an evening shift from 7 to 9. And where live chat is not available, people can still send an email with their question and we will respond within 2 business days. On average, we have about 100 conversations per week, and we answer about 10 to 12 messages per day that are sent during offline hours. And just this month in October, we launched a French version of the live chat. Right now, it's being offered Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 1. So again, that's very new. Once we assess what the uptake is like, we may look at extending the hours. And that's it for now, subject to questions later.
So Farah, that's fantastic. The courts were very happy to support Steps to Justice and CLEO and the development of all of this work. And I know the ministry has been very supportive as well. If you haven't seen the forms, I really highly recommend that you go play around in one. It's like quick tax. It's so easy and intuitive, and it takes out the fear factor. My husband laughs at me that I got rejected from the passport office when I went to update the whole passport for my whole family and their passports. And I am a lawyer. I fill out forms all the time. But when you're not familiar with something, it can be really overwhelming, and you can, mess it up pretty easily. The one thing that if I had a magic wand, and I'm going to put this little wish on many of your organizations, there are organizations outside of Ontario that do a chat for legal advice. And I would dream, in my dreams, someone, I'll poke, I'm not even going to say which square I'm poking, but someone would come up with a way to do that, because I think it's great that CLEO's doing it, but theirs is really about guiding you to the resources that they have. And similar to the need for summary legal advice that Legal Aid has already seen with the telephone call. I think that's a gap that we have that could be delivered potentially quite affordably as well. So poke to many of you. Let's go on, and I'll call on Frankie to talk about the LSO emergency line.
Great, thank you. I'm going to keep it short because I know we want to keep time at the end for questions. But the COVID emergency family law referral line, which we once or twice tried to refer to with its acronym, it never worked, was something that a number of us sort of threw together in the crazy days of mid-March, in collaboration with a number of different stakeholders. We had Pamela Cross from Luke's Place and Tammy and myself and the Law Society and OBA and lots and lots of other stakeholders were involved in this. And the idea was that at the time, as you can imagine, there was at least this sense that the courts had completely shut down, and they hadn't completely shut down, but there was a threshold to get before the courts at the beginning of things. That's largely opened up now, although we still do have questions from the public about sort of how to get access to the courts. If there's an urgent matter, how are they supposed to sort of navigate the current system, and how can they tell if their matter is urgent or not urgent? And so with the Law Society's help, we had put together this family law referral line. We reached out to, amongst others, Lorna's group of lawyers from her project all chipped in and said that they would be willing to help out. A number of other lawyers from across the province agreed. And in essence, what was happening was people would call this number. They would say, I think I might have an urgent matter. And it was staffed by people at the Law Society who were then referring the callers on to lawyers who would provide summary advice essentially as to whether or not their matter was urgent or not, and how to go about actually getting their matter before the court. It was provided free. There was, I don't believe, at least initially, we had any financial eligibility, because that was really not something that we could determine that easily at the time on those calls. Obviously, if things went further from there, we could refer people to legal aid if they qualified. We're also referring a number of people to various domestic violence services if that was relevant to their particular issue, and we were finding that was relevant in a lot of the cases that we were getting, so we had referrals to there. We were also letting them know about limited scope services and all kinds of other sort of sources of information that they could access, and ways in which that they could go on to retain counsel if that's something that they wanted to do. I don't know our numbers currently. I think that particular service is now winding down, because of course the courts now are largely open for business, but we are still getting some calls to that. But I just, I wanted to highlight it because I think it was just such a great example of how the bar and other stakeholders had come together essentially over a weekend. I was up north. We were all on phone calls and Zoom calls kind of all over the province in the first few days of craziness of this lockdown. And but we just had such a great committed group of people who were able to pull this together in order to benefit the public in Ontario. And so to me, it's just such a great example of the ways in which we're able to rise to the challenge when need be.
I'll just add, that was with huge support also from the Law Society. And absolutely. I see Allison Sharon in one of my boxes, and we couldn't have done it without their support.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sheena's on the call here somewhere as well. And we were on a lot of calls with all kinds of people, but yeah, without the Law Society's help, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't have been able to put it together. So anyhow, that was what that program was all about.
Okay, time is of the essence. So let's move along to Jacques. Yeah. Let's move along to Jacques.
Can you hear me? I'm good?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. I'm Jacques Menal. I'm from Kingston. As I mentioned before, I'm 36 years in harness, and my practice has been distilled down from general practice, doing just about everything, to exclusively family law over the last about 15 years. I've also had a number of side gigs because I've been an adjudicator on 7 different tribunals from my call to the bar right to date. So that's kept it busy, but it gives me a variety of backgrounds. My experience is very much granular rather than macro, as I've heard some of the others here. There's some formidable programs that are operating and good representatives here today. But in my case, I think my task is to talk specifically about just one example. I'm partnered with the Kingston Military Family Resource Center in Kingston, and that service there, the clinics that we run, is very close to my heart. We deal with a variety of issues. We don't put any limitation on who comes in for free legal advice, and it runs for an afternoon every week. And I share this responsibility with Chris Ecclestone, who came in and took over for me for a while I went back to school, back to university. So the Kingston Military Family Resource Center, what I say to that, and what perhaps a takeaway is that you don't need to wait for a big program or find yourself in a slot or administered by anybody else. I think you can just identify a group. You know, I sit here in Kingston and I say I could be going down to Martha's Table, which is a food service down on Princess Street, and I could just set up a table and make myself available to people of limited means to give them advice. And so, you know, I'm not associated with legal aid. We certainly had an interesting tussle there way back when, and I'm not associated with pro bono law or anybody else. I'm just basically a renegade out there who felt it was necessary to provide some pro bono work, some access to justice services in the course of my career. The legal aid is a small side story there, because we started the service. I started the service 17 years ago with the Military Family Resource Center. And then the local director thought it'd be a great idea to be able to put that in a ticky box somewhere, and wanted to pay me legal aid rates to run this clinic. And soon enough, other lawyers were sniffing about saying, well, actually, he's taking clients from this clinic, which was absolutely true, because 17 years ago, I was the only French-speaking lawyer in Kingston, and in a military base with a good half of them coming from Quebec, and a huge number of unilingual people in trouble, having problems. I just didn't see it feasible that because they met me, they next had to go to Ottawa to get counsel. So we came to a parting of the ways over that, and I certainly, it didn't last very long in any event. But the kind of issues that we deal with here, we're open to anything that comes in the door. It's a half hour, typically 20 minutes if it's not completely in our bailiwick. If they come in with a copyright problem, they come in with a traffic ticket, they come in with any issue at all. The service that we provide is that we know the whole bar, we know the council, and our specialty is family law, but we can refer them to qualified counsel. And if they have something like they have a patent question or whatever, we can find qualified counsel for them. So we're pro bono rainmakers for other lawyers in this. We know about the mental health supports that there are in the town. We know how to put them in touch with a mediator or an arbitrator. So we're really, because both of us have been around for quite a while now, if you combine them, we're providing people with access to a lawyer who's very familiar with family law, but can also direct them if they come in. They say, you know, really, it was a traffic ticket, or I've got a small claims matter that's coming up, and what should I do? You know, direct them to paralegals. But when it comes down to family law, which is really the focus here, what they get, and I think I've heard this with all of you, is that it's an opportunity very quickly to dispel the myths. And in particular with ours, I get one of the most common things I hear is, well, usually hear in French. Well, what's the problem? You know, whether you're married or common law, it doesn't make any difference. So if Lorna were on my screen, she'd probably be laughing there, but all of you should. And so we get this all the time. And what we do is position people. We give them the comfort of having some understanding of what their situation is, a very good understanding of what their situation is. And we prioritize the advice when we get into a family law matter, like any of you would. I mean, I put custody, residency arrangements at the top. Then they get briefed on child support. They get briefed on SAGs, and many of them are very happy to be able to go off and do their my support calculator calculations and investigate what their liability is. We sometimes do that right in the spot if there's time. And we give them advice on property, which is not something that they might get from an awful lot of other sources. And it's very surprising. If you get the property issues off the table, it's very surprising how that has a spin-off effect. They understand, okay, I'm not going bankrupt. I'm not going to be destitute. That you can go back up to the custody and access arrangements. Suddenly they start to fall into place. So I think it's unfortunate that there's so little advice or sources for getting advice on net family property and the equalization.
Jack, that I'd love to hear so much more about this. I'm looking at the clock, and I just think this is such a great program, but we've got two more people we want to get to. So if anyone has any questions for Jack, please by all means ask them. But I'm going to move us to Carrie Campbell, who's going to talk about the triage project.
Hi, thanks, Frankie. So I'm a family lawyer and a family mediator in Muskoka, and I'm also one of the trainers and one of the owners of the Mediation Center in Barrie. And for years at our center, we've discussed what we think is a very beneficial idea of having some type of triage project, but it just seemed totally unmanageable in terms of financial and politically even. When COVID struck, Tom Dart, who many of you will know, rallied us again and created a formal committee to actually try to move this initiative forward. So we're in baby stages. We're referring to it as a triage hub because we understand the government likes the word hub. So any kind of funding help, we're gonna use what we can get, but we don't have a formal name yet. So the idea is that a client, somebody going through separation, can call a central line, and a meeting will be arranged with our intake person. That intake worker is going to be trained in domestic violence, power and control. So just like a mediation initial screening or an arbitration screening, obviously issues of domestic violence, it's going to be really important for our intake people to get a handle on that, to make appropriate referrals. So our belief is that people often end up in family court because they don't know where else to go. They aren't self-aware enough to recognize what they might be needing, and certainly don't know where to go to get access to those resources. So, for example, clients might need counseling, children's mental health, addiction issues, coaching to help them with communication, financial assist, like help of financial professionals, that type of thing. Obviously domestic violence and a whole host of other community resources. So we would want our intake person to be able to make those referrals. So to have specific groups, organizations, professionals who we know have committed to this, this concept, that they will, they're willing to take people on, and that the cost will be affordable, so that there'll be a buy-in to all of this. So a big piece of this hub is going to be creating a roster of those types of groups and professionals. And then similarly on the legal side, obviously court is an option, but to make sure people are aware of mediation, collaborative services, unbundled services, have roster as well, and commitment to affordability. So it's essentially what we just acknowledge that people in crisis, in a separation, yes, they have a legal issue, but often it's tough to deal with that issue as a first step. So I know from my own consultations with my clients, the most valuable information they tell me they get from me, at least initially, isn't my legal advice. It's referrals and thoughts about, you know, often communication coaching and whatnot. But hopefully that's not any any mark of my legal advice. But it's that other stuff is what they tell me has been so valuable and has made really impacting changes for them. So we're essentially wanting to take a step back, look at the whole person, and figure out what does this person need. Obviously, legal issue advice is a piece of it, but what else do these guys need? So there's similar initiatives going on in Durham and in Ottawa, and all three jurisdictions. We're all creating slightly different models depending on the resources that are available in each community, but we all have the same objective in mind. And our obstacles, of course, is funding. So through the Mediation Center, we're hoping to be able to use our IRCs, the Flick office. Meg isn't, we think that we can use them at least for the court backlog, but certainly no commitment thereafter. So we're looking at collaborating with some other charitable agencies, some of which are coming on our committee, who have funding streams and they believe that that various sort of arms of this they might be able to cover some of it anyways under their funding streams. And once we're ready to launch, then we know from just the struggles of getting the word out on mediation and the Mediation Center. Again, as Frankie and others have said, it's just getting the word out about the program and how we're going to do that. So.
Thank you, Carrie. I'm gonna have to jump in. We still have Catherine Batiki and we're getting really tight on our timing. But yes, you're right, there's a theme there. Kathy?
I'll be very quick. So I just wanted everybody to know about the Women's Center of Halton. I've known about them since about 2005 when I started practicing family law. I've been a lawyer for 40 years, but I was a civil litigator for many years. But I was surprised to find out actually that the Women's Center of Halton was founded in 1989. And it was founded as a result of realizing that women who may have left shelters will still need assistance and care in trying to return back to the community successfully, and that they needed some kind of an organization as a first point of entry to information and services to keep them going. There are two actually physical offices, one in Milton and one in Oakville, and each of them have for many, many years had a free legal clinic service for women. For any woman who needs legal assistance, they can apply for a 30-minute free consultation. Since COVID, that has all gone by the wayside, where usually they would have lawyers who would go up to their center and that they would meet the women for the 30 minutes as they needed. But now it's all online. The legal clinic is offered on Mondays from 6 to 8 p.m. and on Tuesdays from 3 to 6 p.m. And now it is all online. But they offer assistance in family law, immigration law, and criminal law. They are 30-minute legal consultation appointments. There was no charge for the appointments. The clients are asked, as is required by the Law Society requirements, to provide photo ID and if applicable, to give their partner's name for conflict reasons, obviously, because lawyers have to make sure they haven't represented the other side at any time. The purpose is to give legal information and next step information. Sometimes there's a blur between legal information and assistance as to what you need to do. Definitely in the next steps, if you're talking about where you need to go to court to get this order, there's often assistance in trying to show them the forms if they're going to represent themselves, provide them with referrals to other community services in the area. It is available to any woman in Halton. They can either, there's a phone number, there's a website and there's a phone number. They can make an appointment either by going on the website at this point or by phoning. The organization is sponsored by United Way of Halton and Hamilton, and so there is no charge to the women for any assistance that's given.
Thank you, Kathy. Great place to end it up on. I'm just, Tammy and I were just discussing our very, very ambitious agenda, and it's just been so amazing to hear about all these different things, and shocker, a bunch of lawyers have gone over time. But I did want to, we've got a couple of questions. If you have a question, you can type it in the chat feature, and I think you can direct it to me and Tammy, but if not, just type it in generally in the chat feature. I think that's how that works. But we did have one question that's come in, and Farah, this is for you. And that is, will CLEO be developing a Form 13 or 13.1 standalone guided pathway? If not, why not? Can you comment on that?
Yes, so a lot of the pathways is like when you complete it, you get a bunch of forms, but there will also be individual pathways for particular forms. And 13.1 is one of them. And we are actually just finalizing that right now. So it is in the works.
That's excellent. Thank you very much. I hope that answers the question. Someone had also asked a question of Jacques, and that was, is your program available to all Ontarians, or is it just locally where you are? Is Jacques still here? If we'll follow up and find out the answer to that, and we can maybe circulate that out.
It's open to the public.
Oh, sorry. I'm apparently muted. Jacques, are you able to type into the chat like the website or how people get a hold of you?
Oh, I'm there. I'll type something. Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, because people are, I'm getting requests on how people can reach you. Tammy, did you have any questions coming in?
There was one question that was asked about the potential scope for paralegals to assist in this area. As Treasurer Donnelly said, that's something that's currently under consideration with the Family Law Services provider consultation. And this program is intended to focus on programs and services that are already in place from the family lawyer community. So I'm just trying to watch the chat and focus as well. I'm wondering if there are any other questions. I should mention, when I was speaking about the Family Law Limited Scope Services project, the National Self-Represented Litigants Network also has a roster of lawyers who provide unbundled legal services. So that is another resource that's available. And we've been hearing a fair bit about the clinics and the seminars. This is an area that I have been learning a lot about since we started asking people to speak. There are also a few private family lawyers who do those, and I saw one of them earlier on my screens.
I was going to say Sue's running that.
So Sue and Lisa Eisen, I believe, there may be more, have been doing family law information sessions for a really limited cost as well. So it's really cool to see the different ways that people are slicing and dicing these needs in order to make them available, more affordable on an individual basis and also on a group basis, and how the landscape has really changed over the last even couple of years.
You know, I think I thought it was so interesting to listen to. On the one hand, some of the more what we might call branded services, which are, you know, some of these really, really great programs that are slightly more organized, but also listening to what Jane was talking about, you know, just sort of things that individual lawyers are doing on the ground to try and improve the access to justice on a client by client basis. I really love to hear that. Jane, I don't know where do you get these little carbon copies? I know it's very old school, but I love the idea of sort of sending a client away with a to-do list. Is that something you got from a local printer, or how does that work?
Yeah, I just said, I need something that I need to be able to track what I told somebody to do, but I want them to be able to, and I could have photocopied it, but I just find when I'm sitting there with the client going through the interview, these little ideas pop up and I'm like, okay, well, you need to get together your income tax returns, and I'll make a note as, part of their to-do, and I send the to-do out with as much information for them as I can, because my first interview is not a commitment to a retainer. I do it on a really chopped down fee. It's the terms are spelled out before they even show up. But I really try to pack in basically access, support, property, any random questions that they may happen to have. I book 2 hours for it, and I pack in everything I can think of. I'm exhausted and the clients are googly-eyed by the time I'm finished. But they go out with a to-do list and they go out with a blank financial statement as well. So they've got lots to chew on and think about, but there's no commitment to come back. Inevitably they do. It's very rare that they don't, but I like to think it's, it beats the half-hour free legal advice, because I could never pack everything into a half hour that the client needed, and I couldn't turn them away, and I was ending up doing 2 hours of free legal advice, and then they never came back, and I was starting to starve. So the middle ground was a really deeply discounted hourly rate for the 2 hours.
The Advice and Settlement Council does that takeaway too. I think that there's some research which shows that the litigants can walk away from a meeting or an event and not really know what the takeaways are. And that helps them, because they need to understand obviously what's happening and also how to move forward. And also the client notebook concept from Maryland is a great example of that, because it's an organized kind of file where the client can then jump in and out and get access from professionals to help them along the way, but the client is maintaining the responsibility, and there's kind of a concrete way to move forward. So I think that those of us who are providing these services and developing these innovations are thinking of things a little bit differently too, which is kind of cool. We got one really big question for the last 3 minutes of the program. Are there any initiatives to tackle the main problem, simplifying forms and family law procedures in general? The A2J issues will persist if we don't consider this issue as well. So yes, as someone who goes to every Family Rules Committee meeting, at least for the last 7 years, I can say 100%. That's one of the reasons why the ministry has provided funding to CLEO to do the guided pathways, because simplifying the forms is actually quite hard. I've done it with many of them, because the court actually needs information and needs a fair bit of information to resolve the dispute. So we just actually, I think as of September 1st, launched new motion to change forms, which are, I think, far better and a lot easier to use. But you can simplify forms either by simplifying the form or by simplifying the user's experience with the form. And so those guided interviews actually do that and make it much easier for individuals to complete those forms. And actually, there's so much information embedded in them. So when you get to a question, you get the question and it will say, like, I'll use a custody word, which we won't be using for much longer, but what custody order you're seeking, and then you pop up and you get definitions and explanations about what those terms mean. So it's a very iterative process that can help make it easier for the litigant to complete the form in a way that gives the court and the other party the information that they need. But yes, the courts, the Rules Committee, we are always looking at ways to simplify the process. Motions to change is an area that's under consideration right now, but that is something that is an ongoing process.
Tammy, I wonder if I might just add to that too, that I also think that that's a place where, without necessarily dealing with immediately anyhow with the underlying issue, where limited scope services can be really value added as well. Because if we can, depending on what the client needs, and again, I love that about limited scope too, because it's very client focused on exactly what they need and they retain so much control. But if we can help the clients to fill in these forms and they can walk away with a completed form that has all the information that they need, when they then take that into court, even if they're feeling a little bit floundery or panicky or whatever, they can always go back to the form and they have that and it's properly filled in. So I know it's not a direct answer to the question that you were asked, but I do think that it's another really great place where limited scope can come in, where we can help out with that sort of very discrete task. And I think that that brings us to 3:30, unless there are any last minute questions. I'm not getting any on mine. Are you, Tammy? No?
I was asked about the form that I was speaking about, and I'm not sure if it's the legal issues checklist or the CLEO Steps to Justice Guided Pathways. The legal issues checklist is on the Family Law Limited Scope Services website under the information for clients. And it's only a piece of the Maryland client notebook. That's a larger project that I was hoping to get to in my spare time. But that's an elusive concept for me and many of us these days. But the legal issues checklist is there. And also links a lot to, as it identifies issues, it links to the information from CLEO. So there's what CLEO and Farah was kind of understating. We really wanted a reliable entry point to family law information. And that's one of the main reasons why the court supported the Steps to Justice. So it's great that we could take a practical tool like an issues checklist and then link to the concrete information and next steps that the clients may be looking for through CLEO. And then, we don't have to manage that content ourselves.
So for all those of you who are practicing in this area, I hope that this has really helped you to learn about some of the great things that are being done in different parts of the province. And you may know about other things that are being done in other areas of the province. And by all means, circulate that information amongst your colleagues, whichever organizations you're a member of. Make sure that the information gets out there. For anyone who has joined us as a member of the public or is interested in these issues for whatever other reason, I hope that we've been able to give you some sort of highlights of some of the things that are available and happening around the province. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. Tammy, did you have any last words?
No, I mean, if any of you work in organizations where you can help us get the word out of some of these innovations, that would be great. I joked when we launched the Family Law Limited Scope Services project that if you build it, they will come. The lawyers have come, but it's been more challenging to get the clients to come in this virtual environment. So we have been spreading the word through mediation organizations, through other access to justice organizations. But for a charitable project, we don't have ad buys for Google. So anything that you can do in your respective organizations to help get the word out for all of these services, the more informed people are and the more help they have, the better off the system will function, right?
Excellent. Great. So I just got asked a last question, which is the typical CPD information at the end. I don't know, I can't answer that one off the top of my head, but maybe Chloe, do you have that information?
Yes, it's been accredited for 1 hour of professionalism content.
Thank you. There we go. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Good luck. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Be well.
Thank you.